YouTube, it's William. Had a question. A viewer had sent me a question on a PM or a PM last night, and rather than writing a dissertation, I wanted to put it on video because his question was not a simple yes or no. There's a lot of factors that goes into answering this question, so it's easier to put it on video, and also it may help some people out there that that don't know these things. Okay, so welcome to another Whittle Talk. His question was, how does your 6-inch butcher knife hold an edge? He said, I'm tired of butchering hogs and having to stop and resharpen every few minutes. So, alright, so there's many things that goes into that. One of them is quality of steel, of course. Another one is quality of temper. Then you get into blade profile or edge profiles and grinds, and the edge that you put on it is if it's a polished edge or a rough edge or a working edge is what I call them. And also your skinning technique goes into it. So let's take each one by one. All right. Now, quality of steel. Now, there's a lot of thoughts out there that you can only use carbon, and you have to have a high carbon content, and stainless is not good, and I mean just all kinds of things. But me personally, I like high carbon steel blades. I think that they're the best blades out there. Take a little bit more upkeep, but I haven't found anything that I like better than high carbon steel blades. That's why I use 1095 or 01 in my blades. I don't use stainless. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean that all stainless is bad. Alright? There are good quality stainless steel blades. If you get one with a high carbon content, then it's a good steel. A lot of the 440Cs and things like that, and some of the other crucible stainless steels has a lot of carbon in them, and so they're pretty decent blades. Now, also stainless is a little bit harder, so it's more difficult to sharpen. You have to use diamond hones and all this other stuff, but didn't want to get into all that. So if you purchase a knife from a reputable company, notice I said reputable company, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a decent steel. Alright, so that aside, don't get one that says made in Taiwan, made in China. Now, there is some steels out there made in China that's decent steels. Like I said, get one from a reputable company and you should be fine. Alright, second thing is temper. Again, if you get a knife from a reputable company, then temper will not be an issue. Alright. Now, with that said, my knives, I would stack my steel and my temper up with any knife in the world. I haven't tested my knives, but from use of many different knives throughout my life, my edge is as hard as a high carbon content steel can get. They're right around the optimum of 58 to 60. So with that said, yes, my knife will hold its own with any other knife out there. Okay, the other thing is edge profile. And again, you go back and you look at some of my other Whittle Talks and you look at the edge profile, the geometry of the blade, right where the edge is. It may feel sharp, it may cut paper, but it will not cut. If this edge is too thick, it will not cut very well because it has to get over that apex. Okay? So go back and look at that video. You want a knife with a thin edge right here before you start the secondary grind. Okay? Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, go back and look at that video. I think it's called Whittle Talk Edge Profile or something like that. So my knives, I like a thin edge. A thin edge cuts better. It doesn't have the drag that a thicker edge will have. Okay? So the next thing you have to address is sharpening technique and what you use. And I address that as well in another Whittle Talk. I think it is called What is Sharp, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. A polished edge is sharp, but it will not last as long as a rough edge. In other words, if once you hone this knife on water stones and you get it to where you can just look at yourself and it's like a mirror, and you strop it on a strop with buffing compound until it's just so polished and slick and pretty. It's pretty and it'll shave, but we're not shaving an animal, we're cutting an animal. There's a difference. That's the reason they hone and strop razor blades, is to get that hair popping sharp. But again, what is sharp? And I addressed that in that video and more in depth, and I'll put a link to that in the description below so that you can go watch that. But a friend of mine, Briar Goat Killer, actually put that to the test, and the results was not surprising to me, but it was surprising to a lot of folks. So I'll put his link in there as well. It was a very good, thorough test, and it was unbiased. As a matter of fact, he always thought that a polished edge was a better edge, and so he was surprised as well. So that's another factor. So it depends on how you sharpen a knife as to how long the edge will last. Okay, now let's talk about the last part of that, is skinning technique. Now hogs and wild animals, they tend to wallow in mud and grit, get the fleas and ticks off of them. So their outer coat is just caked with sand and grit and mud, and it's just like taking a sandpaper and just running it all along your edge of your knife every time you make a cut on the outside of that skin. So the key is not to cut, or to cut as little as possible on the outside of the skin. Once you do, well, let me move over here and see if I can demonstrate it on a piece of cloth here. Okay, for the sake of demonstration, let's say that this cloth here is an animal. Okay, it's a hog or whatever. On the outside of here, you got sand, grit, you got all kinds of crap. So what you want to do is take it, pinch it, do your first cut as little as possible. Okay, and then take the tip of your blade and run it underneath. And this is kind of hard to do because it's not attached. Run it underneath the skin, and you want all of your cuts to be underneath the skin. Okay? Again, make all of your cuts underneath the skin. The more you cut on the outside and that grit and grime and everything, it's going to just completely dull your edge. So make sure that your blade is underneath and cutting the clean portion of the skin. Does that make sense? Even around the legs, and take the back of my knife, I don't want to cut myself. And when you circle it, that and your first incision in your belly should be the only cuts that you have on the outside of that skin. Everything else, lift the skin up and cut underneath it. That's why butcher knives has this hump here. It's to assist you in doing that. Okay? So again, it all boils down to quality of steel, temper, edge profile, type of edge you put on the blade, and skinning technique. Now if you follow all of those, this knife will last. You will cut several hogs before you have to resharpen it. Okay? Matter of fact, I've scanned deer and hogs on video, and never had to resharpen it once. And that's because of the type of edges I use, and the quality of steel, and my skinning technique. I try to stay underneath the skin as much as possible to keep it out of that grit and dirt. All right. So I hope this was beneficial. I hope it helped you. But again, rough edges are a working edge. A polished edge is for shaving. The only time I strop an edge is right after I've used it on about a medium grit, and I'll just a few times on just a regular piece of leather, and that's just to remove the fine particles from the edge. That's all it is. It's not to polish, because I have very coarse edges, and it will shave a little bit, but it's not hair popping sharp, you know, where they take the hair and hold it up and then slice it. It won't do that. It'll just grab the hair. But again, it'll grab whatever you're cutting, so that makes it cut better. So appreciate you joining me on this, and hope this answered your questions, and maybe give you guys something to think about on the next outing. And on that next outing, you be sure and take plenty of band-aids and lots of knives. And we'll catch you again soon.